So in the last video, I talked about the 4 growth killers. We talked about unnecessary complexity, unscalable processes, unhealthy mindsets, and underdeveloped leaders. Those are the things that hinder growth. And I stole all of that from the Craig Groeschel Leadership Podcast, and I just applied it to our business. And in his podcast, he talked about not only the killers of growth, but the drivers of growth. So you have to identify what's gonna prevent you from growing. And then once you do that, you address those issues, but then you think about and focus on the things that are actually gonna drive growth. And he calls them growth drivers. Now, in his podcast, he talked about what his growth drivers are for his organization, and recognize that it's going to be different for every organization. So the ones that I'm telling you right now, these are just for Butler. These are not applied to Craig Groeschel's growth or even applied to you. You might have 5 different growth drivers. And so the idea is to identify anywhere between 4 to 7. Anything less than 4 is like, okay, well, you could probably, everybody could grow in at least 4 to 7 ways, but anything more than 7, it's like too much to think about, and it might be too overwhelming. And so when we were going through this together as a team, we talked about the things that are going to hinder growth, but then we focused on, okay, what is really going to drive growth for us? And we identified 5, and I'll state them real quickly, and then I'll talk a little bit about each one of them. So the 5 growth drivers, these are the things that Butler really needs to focus on. And for us, this is going to be probably a couple years of focusing on this. It's income, systems and processes, creative leaders, rich culture, and an outstanding product. Those are the 5 things that we need to really focus on and hone in on for the next several years, and just so it's ingrained into who we are. And this is what is gonna help us grow as a company. We all want to grow. We all want to, I think it was John Maxwell who said that change is inevitable, but growth is optional. So you have to really be intentional with growth. And so the first step in being intentional with growth is identifying what is going to help you grow. And so for us, it's those 5 things: income, systems and processes, creative leaders, rich culture, and an outstanding product. So when it comes to income, for Butler, obviously we need money, right? We need to keep the wheels turning, and so that we need to generate revenue. And so we think about revenue for us in 3 different ways. There are big one-off projects, there are monthly retainers, and there are customer service calls. Customer service calls they're going to come. We've been in business long enough. People are going to come back and they're going to need help fixing things that maybe old websites that need updating. Maybe it's new business cards. It's just the nature of being in business. So we don't really focus on how we're going to scale customer service calls. It's just a necessary part of business. But when it comes to the one-off projects and the retainers, it's really two things that we have to focus on in order to generate revenue. One is needing to finish our work and needing to retain our retainers, right? It sounds simplistic, but the thing is, if it was just me and I had one project to work on for the month, that might be nice, right? And then I'll have, maybe 2 or 3 in the queue, and I could start them maybe next week or next month and turn away business. That's just not where we are. Right now at Butler, we have 16 employees. We have about 20 something retainer clients, and we have about 13 one-off projects that we might be working on at one time. So we have a ton of work. And so if we get into a bottleneck to where we onboard clients and they've all paid their deposits, but we get stuck in the middle, we're not getting paid. And so there's this huge amount of work that we might have with this little amount of income because the process is taking way too long. And so in order for us to continue revenue streams going through, we have to make sure that we're finishing our work. And so efficiency is a huge part of income. And so we need money. So that's onboarding new clients, but we don't want to onboard new clients faster, then we're offloading existing clients or existing projects, because then we'll get into this kind of this concentration of work, and then we have a ton of stuff that we're halfway in the middle of and nothing's getting finished, and that's not a good place you want to be. So you need to make sure that you're kind of watching, what is your revenue stream looking like? A lot of people is like, oh, I'm never going to turn away business, but you might be in the capacity or in the place to where I can't handle 5 new clients tomorrow. It sounds nice for 5 new clients to pay a deposit, but do you have the ability to make sure that you're serving them well? So number one is for us is income. We need to make revenue. That means filling the top of the funnel at a equivalent rate that we're offloading the bottom of the funnel. And then the other part of that is retaining retainers. And so for us, retainers, this is monthly residual income that is predictable, that that helps us project what we're going to be able to do the next month. If we lose a retainer client, that's taking away from our monthly projections, so that all of our overhead. The ideal would be our overhead expenses are covered with retainers. One-off projects are icing on the cake, allowing us to infuse money into the business so that we can invest in either people or products or new processes or software. But the retainers really is what's paying the bills. So if we lose a retainer, we have to make sure that we replace them. And onboarding a new client, as you know, is a process. And so we want to make sure we bring in new business, we finish our work, but we're also retaining our retainers. And so that's how we're thinking about income. So for Butler, we identified the 5 growth areas, and each month at our all staff meeting, we're zeroing in on one of the growth areas. The income for us we talked about that in January and in February. The next one, which is the systems and processes, this is what in March and going into April, we're going to be really focusing in on our systems and our processes. So income is one thing, systems and processes. And by the way, as I go through these month by month with my staff, maybe we'll spend 1 month on one of those growth drivers. Maybe we'll spend 4 months on one. It just depends on where we are. So income is the first. Second is we need to have systems and processes. So I wrote here in our slide deck, this is just from my meeting, my all staff meeting, is one of our core values. Though the temptation is to fix our systems and processes before we increase revenue, we really need both simultaneously. So what I'm talking about here is a lot of times our team is like, hey, we need to pump the brakes on onboarding a bunch of new clients until we fix our systems and processes issue. And in reality, you can't do that. You have to do both simultaneously, because one is it gives you more opportunity to refine your processes, right? So the more business you have, the more ability and more experience you have. But second, it's also going to keep revenue going. And so you have to do both simultaneously. More clients is more opportunities to refine our product or our services. And we need what we identified for ourselves is we needed several touch-base meetings to review 2 questions. Are we following the process, or does the process need to be updated? And so for us, I talked about it in the last video, is we take a big project, split it up into sprints. Each sprint has a planning session and a review session. So sprint planning for conducting a strategy. Hey, here's our client. Here's we go over all the discovery notes, and everybody's told what to do to create their strategies. Then we create it together. And then once we're able to develop and deliver the strategy to the client, and we're going to now maybe creative, we're going to design this going into the next sprint. Before we go into the next sprint, we'll do a review. Did we follow the process? Did we have the touch base meetings that we're supposed to? What went well, what didn't go well? And so we're asking those 2 questions, have we followed the process? And if so, does the process need to be updated? The third thing is creative leaders. So we talked about, first and foremost, we need income. Second, we need processes and systems and processes. And the third thing is we need creative leaders. So at Butler, it's not just about creativity. We are a creative agency. We do creative work, but everybody needs to be treated as a leader. Even if there's no employees underneath them and they don't have any direct reports except for me, then still you're a leader. You're leading your department, you're leading your position. I want to operate my business as if everybody, even if it's just one person in that department, as if everybody were to have people underneath them. And so how do you grow not only creatively, but also as a leader? And so the sentence or the paragraph that I wrote here is creativity speaks to the ability to do new, innovative, exciting things. I don't want everything we put out to look the same. And so we need to make sure that Butler has diversity in our creative expression. Leadership assumes that everyone takes complete ownership of their tasks and projects. So this means that, hey, not only are you growing as a creative, but you don't have the ability to pass the blame or the buck off onto anybody else. You have to take complete ownership of your tasks and your projects. This assumes that we're all taking steps to grow personally. For me, Sean, I need to be focused on growth and not micromanagement. And so I'm a terrible micromanager. I can't tell you what to do and how to do it. I need to say, this is what you need to do. We can talk about how you might need to do it, but you have freedom in there. I'm not going to micromanage you. Everybody needs to be kind of a motivated self-starter. And so that's what it means to be a creative leader. The third thing is a rich culture. Actually, the fourth thing. The third thing was the creative leaders. The fourth thing is a rich culture. It can't all be about just all work, no play. That's terrible, right? We're spending most of our days with these people, right? We're spending more time. I spend a lot more time sometimes in the office than I do even with my own family at times, because we're spending 8 hours a day together, with some of these people. And then I might spend, 5 hours in the evening with my family. And so is this a huge time, a huge amount of time that you're spending with these people? Well, it's going to be soul crushing and soul killing if it's all just about the work. And so you have to think about ways to enjoy the people that you're working with. For me, I'm a big food guy. I love sharing meals. I think there's something special about the way humans are created to share meals with one another, break bread. And so we take intentional time, at least once a month, to share a meal together, but also to plan for activities and just to have fun. If I wouldn't want to hang out with this person after work, then why am I going to want to work with them? And so we need to make sure that we're cultivating a rich culture. And part of the culture is not just hanging out and having fun, but it's identifying some core values, right? Who are we as an organization? What is true to who we are? Even if we're imperfectly following those things, what are the unwavering standards by which we reach towards, right? So if we do fall short, at least we know we're falling forward towards reaching those goals. And so every month at our all-staff meeting, I reiterate our core values. Why? So we could always remind ourselves of those and hold each other accountable to them. So having a rich culture is critical to growth for us. We invest a lot of time, a lot of money, and we emphasize things about culture. So I don't mind doing that. And so again, for us, it's rich culture. For you, it might be something else. And then the last thing is an outstanding product. At the end of the day, yes, we need income, we need money, and we have our ways of thinking about that. We need systems and processes to make sure that we're onboarding new clients and we're offloading them as well as retaining our retainers. We need to have creative leaders. We need to have a rich culture, but we also need to have an outstanding product. It's all worth nothing if the product that Butler creates is not phenomenal. And so at the end, the end result, the deliverables, the thing that the clients are actually seeing and that we're putting out into the world, it has to be done with excellence. What does that look like? That looks like us continuing to grow. Like if you're not embarrassed by the things you did 2 years ago, then you probably haven't grown a whole lot, right? So every year I kind of do this recap of where Butler has come from. So some of our first creative projects, even our own stuff, our own logo and our own designs, and then how we've progressed over the years. And it's a fun thing once a year to revisit how we've grown. And so we've embedded into our departmental goals. How have you grown as a creative? Like, what did you do different this year? Like how is your product outstanding? How are you excelling and exceeding from what you were able to create this year compared to the last? And we actually incentivize that. So the design team has to show me a portfolio at the end of the year and make a case. how what they did this year was different and better than what they did last year. So how are we expressing ourselves differently? How are we growing in our creative craft? The same thing with our video team. At the end of this year, we're expecting them to create a reel. Here's a highlight of all of the cool projects that we're able to do, all of the things that we've been able to grow in. And so why? It's because I want to make sure that we have an outstanding product, that we're not just putting things through the hopper and doing, assembly line creativity. People are coming to us to do a high level of customization, and I want to make sure that we're doing that. So that's it. Those are the 5 areas of growth for Butler Branding. What I would encourage you to do is not just copy mine, which you're free to do. Do that if you want to. You could copy mine, but identify for you in your company, even if it's by yourself. You have to, if you want to grow your creative business, even if you're by yourself, you have to treat it like a business. So identify the 4 to 7 areas of growth, the things that are really going to catapult you to going to the next level. And I'd be encouraged to see what you guys come up with. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Make sure this content gets out to more people. And if you are a creative entrepreneur and you're looking to level up, maybe you feel stuck, learn from my mistakes. At agency.butlerbranding.com, we have a free webinar that talks about everything I've learned in scaling Butler Branding since we started in 2012. I'm talking about everything I've learned from brand positioning, marketing, sales, strategy, and project management. So learn to level up for free at agency.butlerbranding.com.